Good day, comrades. How are you doing today? My name is Arcady. It's a pleasure to meet you. And today we're going to be talking about how I started selling at 54% as a male in a menopausal niche and how you can too if you are in a B2C niche, which is mindset, health, fitness, anything that has nothing to do with money specifically, but rather with health or relationship aspect of life. With a free framework that I'm going to walk you through and explain how exactly it works and why it's working so well. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. So, number one, first and foremost, my name, as already stated, is Arcady. I was a high ticket coach for the past 4 years, made more money in 1 month than I made in a whole year, collected over 80K in cash, and that all without running a single ad, relying on referrals, or posting a ton of content. I now create this content to share some no BS money making strategies for high ticket coaches so that you can make some nice cash too. Got nothing to sell you, so enjoy. Today, what I want to cover is the specific framework I used to start selling at 54% to women in menopause niche as a male without a doctor's degree at the price point of 2 to 3K, give or take. The results they were getting were amazing, so I wasn't cheating anyone. So to start with, it wasn't always like that. I was like this cat. I had no idea what I'm doing. So for the first 4 months of selling in high ticket coaching space, my conversion rate was 0 to 10% per month. So quite literally only 1 out of 10 women would buy the program, which believe it or not sucked. I didn't like it. Which leads me to my bonus advice, always track your numbers. What allowed me to shift that was simple. I started tracking my conversions, and that's where I was like, oh, I think I need to fix that. So for the first 4 months, I wasn't even aware of the problem. I was just unsatisfied that I'm not making enough money. I then realized that my dissatisfaction should be guided towards a problem I can actually solve, which at that point was sales conversions. Once I realized that I suck at sales completely and utterly, I cried in my pillow. I then remembered that I'm a man and that I can't cry in the pillow, so instead I need to become better at what I suck at. Right? I know, crazy, crazy. So, how did it change? Through practice, obviously. So, here is the one single thing that allowed me to go from 10% to 54% conversion rate. I started role playing sales calls daily and more often than not bi daily. And I know that for some strange reason, a lot of people have prejudice towards role plays, and that's okay. But I seriously don't know any other way to get good at something without practicing it. And it's way cheaper, believe me, to fail while role playing than to fail while being on a sales call. The price of the first one is ego, the price of the second one is your revenue. So sacrifice the ego, not the money. Once I did get better at it and started taking more and more calls, all of a sudden I realized that I never really brought out the features, amount of coaching calls, length of the program, what's included in the program, etc. So let's dive into the framework that allowed me to do that. Introducing the Approvers Sales Call Framework B2C by Nurturize, aka me. And it's B2C specifically. I will also record one video for B2B. That would be 33% conversion rate for me specifically. And it's also going to be using a Prover Sales Call, just slightly different. So stay tuned. So this is how it looks like in the framework that you'll be able to get completely for free in the description of the video. And in short, PROWER stands for prime the call, establish the goal of the call and set expectations, reveal their reality, the R, dig into their current situation, problems, and pain points, and desired outcomes, overcome objections in advance, address time, money, and decision making roadblocks early on, walk through their lifestyle. That's why it's a B2C. Deep dive into the three core pillars of their problem and showcase how you approach the first. Explain the difference, request buy in, and seal the deal. Right? So that is the framework that was developed by me. And once I started practicing it every day for 30 days straight, I started selling at 54%, which never dropped below. It went up to 70% 1 month, which was wonderful, and then got back to 54%. So let's dive right into it. As I said, it's right over here. So Power Sales Framework B2C. I'm going to be explaining the framework as I'm going to be going through it. So stay tuned. First and most important step is to prime the call. The mistake I see more often than not is that you don't frame your calls. You just jump into it with like, "Hey, thank you so much for jumping in. I'm so happy to see you today." And like they don't want that. They don't need it either. They jumped on the call with you to get a solution to a problem. Keep in mind that nobody cares about you or your solution. Like literally no one except you. What people care about the most is themselves, their problems, their understanding of the problem. So we want to talk about that. People, when they jump on the sales calls, what they're looking for is not a nice chit chatty friend. They're looking for an expert who knows what they're doing. They appreciate it, they enjoy it. That's what they want. So that's what we want to give them. An example of framing, priming the call could be something along the lines of: today is about understanding your challenges and seeing how we can help you achieve your goals. I'll ask you some questions to get a clear picture of where you are and where you want to go. And by the end of the call, I will either send you away with heaps of value, or we might discuss us actually working together. But that depends. How does that sound? As you may see, I didn't go into where are you calling me from, what's the weather like, and so on. What I usually ask is like, how do I pronounce your name? But that's purely for me. I want to understand how do I pronounce their name and not mispronounce it, because people like their name, so we want to say it as often as possible. That would be the example of the framing. So frame your calls, prime them for what's about to happen, set clear expectations. Second step is reveal their reality. In other words, understand their current situation, identify pain points and desired outcomes. This is super important, and I'll explain why in a minute. But before that, let me take a step back and explain why it's a framework and not a script. The problem with sales and people who sell more often than not is that they think that if they will read the right words, they will see the right outcome. Usually that's not the case, because in sales there's so many multiple outcomes. People can get resistant here. They can get resistant here. They can get resistant here. You need to take a step back. You need to reclarify things. Frameworks allows us to be flexible with our wording, with our language, and connect with people in on a deeper level. That's why it's a framework. So don't say this the way it's written. Ask a question that would answer this question. Confirm their current problem can be asked in different ways. For example, if you're in a menopausal niche, I can start the call with, gotcha. So you mentioned in the booking questions that you're dealing with menopause at the moment. Is that correct? That's one way of asking it. But I could have asked, you said that you're dealing with menopause. Is that right? Similar questions. The point here is that I also want to match their language. And in the first couple of minutes of the call, while I'm setting the frame and asking the questions, I can usually grasp at what is their language level, how they prefer to communicate, and so on. That's why we want to use these points to ask questions. We don't want to read from them. They are your checkboxes. Number one, we want to start with confirming their current problem. For the purpose of this video, I'll be talking about weight loss specifically. So I will start with confirm their current problem, which would be weight gain. So you mentioned in the booking questions that you're dealing with weight gain at the moment. Is that correct, name? Let's say I'm talking with Sarah. Is that correct, Sarah? That's question number one. Understand what are the problems related to the main problem. It could be low energy, it could be bad relationships, it could be high stress. The way I can ask that, or a couple of questions I can ask for that, is cool. So tell me, Sarah, number one, how many kilos did you gain? That is a problem related to it. Let's say 20 kilos. Okay, and how does that make you feel? That would be another question I might ask in relation to this particular point. Then, after that is done and I understood all the problems, and really don't skip this step, ask all the questions until you understand what are the problems related to the main problem, what are the problems related to the weight gain. It literally could be low energy, bad relationships, high stress, inability to play with the children, and so on. This is what creates the buying desire. This is what allows them to want to buy from you, because now they are aware of the problems themselves. Confirm how long they have been dealing with it, which is simple. How long have you been going through what you just mentioned? Then we want to identify pain points. So what have you tried so far to solve them? Those questions you can just read from. It will be different for every coach. The answer itself, obviously. What have you tried so far to solve them? What has worked and what hasn't? Then ask why hasn't it worked? So use each question wisely. Then desired outcome. Here we want to understand what is the goal, because our goal is to create a gap, right? That is where they are. This is where they want to go. This is what creates the buying desire. People only change their behavior, buy stuff, when they're either in pain or they're looking for pleasure. Those are the only two things. Those are the only two conditions under which we human beings change our behavior and do something differently, invest in ourselves. So if we don't discover what pleasures them and what is the pain, they won't change their behavior, aka they won't give you their credit card. You will lose the sale and you won't help them. So it is unethical from our side not to go deep into what is the pleasure, what is the pain. That's why this part of the process, especially for a B2C niche, is the most important one. This one. reveal their reality. If you don't execute properly on that, the rest of the framework can be thrown away to the garbage bin and never. Here, we need to go deep on everything, their pains, their pleasures. So, desired outcome. What would your ideal life look like without the problem, without extra 20 kilos? Make sure to also understand why it would be so important for them to reach the scenario, which means once they tell you the goal, and by the way, for most people, they don't even know what the goal is. So if you ask them, what would happen after you lose 20 kilos? They'll say, I'll just feel better. And is that enough? No, it won't. Nobody will invest $2,000 or $3,000 into you if you promise them to feel better. So here, this is like the key, is to ask them why it would be so important for them. And you need to ask it in a specific manner. I usually lower my tonality a bit and I start speaking slower. So I would say something along the lines of, so Sarah, tell me, why would that be so important for you? That is the exact way I was saying it hundreds of times. And that is exactly why 54% of women that I spoke to bought from me. Because I like this question is one of the most important ones in the whole conversation, given that you did this part properly. Because what they will tell you here is the exact reason why they will give you their money. Because the moment they will tell you why it's so important for them to reach this goal and overcome this pain is the moment you will have the biggest levers of all. Crazy. I know, but that's what I discovered. That's what worked for me at least. And so for some people, it could be something along the lines of, well, Arcady, it's just I couldn't play with my kids for 2 years straight now because of 20 kilos. And I don't think I can take another year without that. They're growing so distant from me. That literally could be the answer to this question. Imagine how much leverage you now have over that person, in a good way, obviously, once they answer that question, given that you asked it in a proper manner. Would it be worth your $2,000 to start playing with your kids again and improve your relationship with them? Obviously, it would be. So, what would happen if you don't address these challenges? This question can be asked that way. I also usually like to make a joke out of it. So, I usually pre frame it with a sentence of, so, Sarah, usually we either grow or we decline or we stay the same, which is negative. So, we can either go up or we can go down. So, question, we know what will happen if you go up. You will lose weight, you will improve your relationship with the kids. I'm wondering, what do you think will happen if nothing changes? That's usually how I ask it. And they usually tell me what's going to happen. Well, I'm going to grow even distant from my kids and I won't be able to play with them as much, blah, 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 blah. Whatever they say, this is their biggest fear. Once again, we just enlarged our toolkit of levers. This is important. So please practice this. This is the gold. Without this, nothing else matters. So once we identified their pain points, understood their current situation and desired outcome, we move into overcoming objections in advance. What usually happens is you don't touch this particular part because you're like, I feel uncomfortable talking about money. Like, I don't want to seem mercantile. Like, what do you do by the end of the call? Huh? The whole point of you jumping on the call is so that you can help them and that they could give you money. Let's be honest about it. We want to overcome objections in advance. We don't want to keep it here after the price when they say, I don't have the money. We want to overcome those. No, we want to understand if they're qualified for this specific part. So how do we do that? We pre-frame it once again. Always pre-frame stuff. So I could say something along the lines of, Sarah, so far we've gotten some meaningful obstacles up in the open. I actually think that it might be a good idea to show you what I did in your exact position and what my clients did to achieve the goals you're looking for. Would you like that? Here I'm inviting them to a method pitch. That's all what it is. I'm offering more value in exchange for which I need some information. Once they say yes to that, which why would they wouldn't, I can ask, great. So I'd love to ask you a couple more questions just so I can personalize the coming steps to your exact situation. You'd be okay with that, right? At which point they say yes. So you start with time, you sandwich the money in between decision making and time because money is the most important thing. Time, they can find. Decision making can be adjusted. But if they don't have the money, there is no point in continuing the conversation. Just no point. Unless you want to do some charity work, which is totally cool. How to qualify for time? Great. Would you be able to find like 4 hours a week to focus on the problem of weight gain? Then we qualify them for money. Cool. So throughout the process, I will be recommending tools or solutions for you to reach your goals even faster. Just so I understand what to recommend. What are we looking at in terms of cash on hands and personal income that you can delegate towards this problem on a monthly basis? Because if you have an aligned budget, that I would obviously rather recommend things that will get you there faster. And if you're on a slim budget, then go with cheaper options or even free stuff there, right? I kind of passed through it. Keep in mind, when you talk about money, lower the tonality, get more calm. Because people are getting stressed about money more often than not. We don't want to make them stressed. We want to keep them at our level of calmness. If they resist to answer that, keep in mind that you are a surgeon. Without the data, you cannot provide proper help. So if they cannot give you information about their time, money, and decision making, how on earth will you be able to do something personalized to them? So just speak that freely and just tell them, look, I have option A for 10K, I have option B for 2K, I have option C for 0. I know that each of them have a set of benefits, pros and cons that may be helpful for you and that may get you to your goal faster. And that's what you want as well. Am I right? They'll be like, yes. You'll be like, cool. So now what I want is I want to understand which one is the best for you. Is that fair enough? So, how much do we have in personal income that we can delegate towards this problem on a monthly basis? Depending on their answer, we now know where they are financially and if we should continue the conversation. So once we qualified them for money, we qualified them for time, now we want to qualify them for decision making. It's a very simple question. Are you fully in charge of your finances, or is there someone else who would be on the call if you decide to invest in anything? That's it. They say, no, I'm fully in charge. Wonderful. They say, yes, somebody needs to be my husband. For example, you're like, no problem, let's book a call with him instead of going forward. I don't want to repeat myself twice. You don't want to hear the same thing twice either. You will forget most probably everything I said anyway. How about we just have a chat with you and your husband to make sure that if we come up to a decision of some sort, everybody's on board? Would you be okay with that? They'll be like, yes. Wonderful. So that's what we want. We want to make sure that we're talking to decision makers as well. Now we want to walk through their lifestyle. So what does it mean? Pretty much what an average idea of method pitch in coaching industry in most industries is. I will have a presentation where I will talk about stuff and about my company and about how amazing we are and a bit about their problems. Do we want that? No, we don't, because nobody buys from that or buys at very low scale. We want to personalize the method pitch to them. We don't want to talk about our features or benefits. We want to talk about how exactly we're going to be solving their problems. Your method probably consists of pillars 2 to 4. Ideally speaking, it's supposed to be 3 just because human beings like the number 3. Therefore, we want to match that desire and talk about numbers as well. So, number 3, we had 3 pillars in our niche, which were nutrition, exercise, and stress management. So I would ask them, how does their nutrition look like right now? So walk me through your nutrition on average. How does your breakfast, lunch, and dinner look like? Once they gave me their answer, I would share with them what, from our perspective, they're doing wrong. I'm giving them a new insight. And then I would say how we would do it differently, giving examples of our previous clients or examples of the founder. So, to give you an example of pillar 1, and then you just copy it on pillar 2 and 3, I could ask something along the lines of, so Sarah, tell me, what are you eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? And she would tell me, yeah, I'm eating very healthy. So, for breakfast, I have protein bars and a protein shake with berries. In my mind, I immediately, okay, she raises her insulin in the morning. That's why she's fat. Simple. What are you eating for lunch? Oh, for lunch, I have like a very healthy salad. Okay, what is included in the salad? Vegetables. Nothing more, nothing more. Okay, what about dinner? Oh, I skip dinners. I'll be like, okay, so here's what we're looking at, Sarah. You are in perimenopause. You are raising your insulin in the morning with breakfast. You have no protein pretty much in the lunch, and you eat no dinner. So, in a way, you're in a calorie deficit, right? And she's like, yes, I just don't know why I'm not losing weight. I'll be like, no, hear me out. What happens when you do that? You put your body under stress. What happens when you put your body under stress? It develops a hormone called cortisol. What happens when the cortisol is high? It raises your insulin, not to mention you already do that in the morning. What happens with extra insulin in your body? It gets stored as fat. Otherwise, it would kill you. Make sense? She'll be like, wow. You see, we want that reaction. We want to give them an insight. I didn't share what we're going to be doing yet. I just told her what she's doing wrong and why is it wrong. And I didn't say it in a accusational way. I just brought some facts in. You cannot argue with facts. They're just facts. And she can dislike them, in which case, totally cool. Then I can explain how we would do it differently. So I could preframe it with a question like, so Sarah, tell me please, would you be okay with me sharing how we would do it differently? She would say yes. Like, okay. Sarah, here's how we would do it differently. We would personalize your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner to number 1, suit your desires. Number 2, make sure that you can cook them. And number three, make sure that it's accessible for you. The main difference between what we will do and what you're doing now is that you will have a good amount of carbs because you need carbs, a good amount of fats because you need fats. And I believe you missed them. Am I right? She'll be like, yes, haha. And a good amount of protein. Those are going to be three things. It's going to be 3 meals a day or 2 meals a day, depending on how busy you are. That way, what we saw is once we change the diet from what you're currently doing to what we do, women generally lose around 2 to 3 pounds per week moving forward. Make sense? She'll be like, wow. Do you see how that will be such an important and crucial step to start with, to take in the very beginning before doing anything else? At which point they say yes. So what I did here is I explain, confirm, reaffirm. ECR. I explained what they're doing wrong and what's supposed to be done differently. I connected it to them. So I explained it in context of them and then I reconfirmed it. I confirmed that this would be the most crucial step in the beginning. And this we want to do with pillar one, pillar two, and pillar three. On exercise, you can ask them what are you currently doing for exercise. Then you explain what can be done differently. Then you connect it to them. So you connect the solution to their problem. This is what we will do because you're dealing with this. Makes sense? This is how we will be able to lose extra 2 pounds per week because now you will be doing X instead of Y. Makes sense? Yes. I know I'm explaining a lot and I'm explaining a lot at the same time. So please bear with me. Watch this video twice if that will make sense because it's a lot of information to cover in one video. That's the whole point. Then we just ask, do you see how this particular step would be so important to do? At which point they will say yes. Cool? So once we went through the method pitch in this specific order and in this specific way. So here it's APR, but it's ECR, don't worry. Usually in B2C, it will happen less. If you're in a weight loss niche, it will happen more often than not because everybody who is dealing with weight gain tried going to coaches before. But in most niches like dating or mindset, it happens rarely. But we still want to ask, have you worked with anyone else before to solve these challenges? For example, coaches or consultants. At which point they say no. You're like, wonderful. Then you move on. If they say yes, you just ask, why didn't it work out? Because if they're still fat, it didn't work out. Listen to them, ask them anything else. And once they say yes, you listen more. And once you get the list of all the things why they think it didn't work out, those things you don't break up. If they say it didn't work out because there were too many coaching sessions, you never say that you're going to get a lot of coaching sessions. You say that you're going to get enough to get you to where you want to go. Okay, this is another point that we want to put in our toolkit of levers. Then we want to request a buy-in. And this is my favorite way to close, which is funny. We want to use the scale of 1 to 10. So first of all, we want to go on the importance of solving the problem, in which case we have, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it for you to solve this challenge right now? If they say anything less than 10, you go into why. If they say 9 or 8, it's not good. It's supposed to be 10, a solid, harsh 10. So if they say it's a 9 out of 10, you're like, why not a 2 or a 3? Well, because of X, Y, and Z. Wonderful. Why not a 10? What's holding us from being a 10? Why is it not important for you to get back with your kids? Oh, it's no, it is very important. So is it a 10? Yes, it's a solid 10. Okay, cool. That's what we want. Anything less than a 10 is a 0. Just take it as it is. Why now? Why not in a couple of days of month? We want to prevent, oh, I need to think about it or I want to get started in a couple of weeks. We want to understand why it's important for them now. Then, do you feel you might use some help implementing these challenges? Here we're inviting them to say yes to us selling them. I know, complicated sentence, but we want to get approval to start selling them. This is where the sale happens. When they say yes to this question, we ask this magical one. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you don't want to be on this call and you will block me afterwards, make a joke out of it, and 10 being I am ready to move forward and crash my goals with you right now, where would you say you are? If they say anything below 10, once again, you go into why, and you pre-overcome objections. If they say 10, you're saying, wonderful, go and get your credit card. Let's get you going. This is a magical sentence, and some people resist saying that. I know. But literally, that is exactly how I close at 54%. I would just ask this question on a scale from 1 to 10. Where would you say you are? They would say 10. I would say, cool, go and get your credit card. Like 5 times out of 10, they would just go and get their credit card, or they would say it's right here. Other times they would say, haha, so how much is it? Then you go into pricing. But believe me, if you did everything right and they're 10 out of 10, at this point, what's left is to go through the pricing, create a payment plan if needed based on their finances, and just seal the deal. That's what we want. Seal the deal. Financial comfort. Yes, that's it. That's all what we want. So really all the work is happening here. This is where the work is happening. Most people think about sales, the work is happening after the price. You kind of anticipate it. No. Put as much of your energy as possible into revealing their reality, understanding current situation, pain points, and desired outcome. Overcome objections, and make the method pitch the most educational and the most inspiring and insightful conversations they've had in the past month with other salespeople. After that, they already bought in. That's where the sale happens. Pricing is just the small part of it, which can be going through like, okay, how much is it? It's just $2,000. Do you want to use your credit card or do you want to do a bank transfer? That's it. If you know that they can afford $500 per month from this part of money, you're just saying wonderful. So the price is $2,000. If we get started today, I could make it 500 a month for 4 months with no extra interest. Which credit card would you want to use? That's it. That's the closing question. Be cool about it. Be calm because you already know that they want it. And if they don't want it, if they said nine on any of those questions, don't even move forward. Believe me, if you couldn't get them to attend, they will never buy anyway. Just never happens. So that is the framework. And here are a couple of last things to keep in mind. These are not the questions that need to ask, but those are the questions that need to be answered and verbalized during the conversation with your prospect. Is this a problem they really want to solve? What's going to happen if they don't solve this problem? Why now, and what's their biggest motivation to solve the problem? Can they do this on your own? And why can't they do it on their own? They need to clearly describe why they cannot do it on their own. And during the conversation, it's pretty clear anyway. And what's their goal vision? If those questions aren't answered, the likelihood of you making the sale is low. Because what is the definition of sale? The definition of sales, and by the way, that's also the definition of coaching and teaching, is to inspire someone to change their behavior. And we as humans only change our behavior under two conditions: when we are running away from something or running towards something. So, your main goal as a salesperson is to clearly understand and help them to see what they're running away from and what they're running towards too, without being unethical, of course. The intention is always to serve, not to sell, is to help them. That's what we want. And this framework is exactly what I used to sell at my conversion rate. So now that we discovered what the framework is all about, and by the way, once again, you can find it in the description down below, I truly believe that sales are everywhere. Your spouse taking you out for the boring walk in the mall, you wanting to watch football, play video games, etc., you getting the waiter to be nice and serving during the meal. Everything around you is sales. You are selling and being sold to on a daily basis, and especially if you're a high ticket coach, not knowing how to sell is literally the difference between money and no money. So always practice sales, jump on role plays, watch educational content, read books. Hope this was truly helpful. Wishing you a wonderful day, comrades. And this would be the end.